You're in a restaurant. The air hums with quiet conversations and the faint clinking of silverware against porcelain. A low jazz melody drifts from hidden speakers, mingling with the aroma of roasted coffee and wine. You notice two people sitting at different tables, two worlds sharing the same space. At one table, a man speaks loudly, gesturing with irritation. His words slice through the calm air like sharp glass. He complains about his boss, his clients, his day, about how everything and everyone seems to fall short of his expectations. When the waiter makes a minor mistake, his tone sharpens. He snaps, demanding correction, as if the entire room should witness his struggle. Every gesture, every sigh, is a performance begging for validation. At another table sits someone entirely different, quiet, composed. Their food arrives cold. They smile, thank the waiter, and continue the conversation without breaking flow. No complaint, no raised voice, just the steady rhythm of self-control. They observe the world without needing to control it. One demands attention, the other earns respect. And you can feel it, the invisible current in the room shifting toward one and away from the other. Here's the truth most people never grasp. Public spaces aren't stages for performance. They're mirrors. Every time you step into the world, every time eyes fall on you, you reveal something about who governs you, your emotions, or yourself. The man who reacts, complains, or postures in public isn't just showing what happened to him. He's showing who owns him. And once people see that, you can't take it back. You can apologize for a mistake, you can explain your intentions, but you can never erase the image they now carry of you. Think about it. You've seen it before. A friend loses their temper in a cafe. A colleague makes a scene. A stranger argues loudly over nothing. You watch it unfold, and something inside you quietly rewrites who that person is. You may smile later. You may forgive. But respect doesn't return. Something in you files that moment away under one quiet judgment. They can't control themselves. Marcus Aurelius understood this centuries ago. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What happens around you may be chaotic, unfair, even cruel, but what happens within you is always your domain." And public behavior is where that truth gets tested. When you're in front of others, your discipline isn't about perfection. It's about restraint. Every gesture, every response, every silence reveals what kind of person you've been training yourself to be. Because no matter what you say you believe, no matter how many books you've read, your behavior in public tells the world whether philosophy has truly shaped you or whether it's just decoration on a fragile ego. That's why the Stoics saw daily life not as a series of random moments, but as a constant examination. The market, the dinner table, the office, the cafe. These are not neutral spaces. They are mirrors, each reflecting a different side of you under pressure. When someone provokes you, when a waiter forgets your order, when traffic slows you down, the world is asking, who rules you? Your anger, your pride, your need to be seen as right, or your reason, steady, calm, unshaken? You've seen the contrast before. The person who stays calm while others lose control becomes magnetic. They don't need to demand respect. It forms around them naturally, like gravity around a planet. Their silence is louder than shouting. Their composure, more impressive than power. But here's what most people miss. Those moments of restraint aren't random. They're trained. They're the result of years spent mastering the inner world so that the outer world cannot shake it. And the people who fail this test? They broadcast their weakness every time they step outside. Not through what they say, but through how they carry themselves when things don't go their way. Public behavior isn't about image. It's about integrity. Not about performing calmness, but embodying it. Not about pretending to be disciplined, but living in such a way that no one doubts it. Every glance you exchange, every word you speak in public is a message. I am in control. Or, I am ruled by my impulses. And the world listens more closely than you think. So the next time you step into a public space, remember this. You're not performing. You're revealing. The question is, what story are you telling about yourself without saying a word? If you want to master how others see you, not through performance but through presence, subscribe to True Stoic Way. Because here, we don't teach you how to appear strong. We teach you how to become unshakable. 1. Never complain about your problems in public. Picture a quiet dinner among friends. The lighting is soft, laughter rises and falls like the flicker of candles. Plates pass from hand to hand. It's the kind of evening meant to restore you, a rare moment of ease in a restless world. But at one corner of the table sits Linda. You can feel the energy shift before you even realize why. Every topic seems to orbit her frustrations. Ask her about work, and she exhales heavily, her shoulders collapsing under invisible weight. "You wouldn't believe my boss," she begins, and what follows is a 10-minute monologue of injustice. The tone isn't seeking advice, it's demanding attention. When someone mentions weekend plans, she sighs again. Too busy, too exhausted, too unappreciated. When another friend shares something good, Linda finds a way to darken it with comparison. The conversation starts to shrink. Smiles fade into polite nods. People stop making eye contact, afraid of being pulled into the undertow of her discontent. What began as connection becomes quiet endurance. By dessert, something subtle but final has happened. The group splits into small pockets of laughter and side talk. Linda is left stirring her coffee, unaware that she's become background noise. Later, as the evening ends, someone whispers what everyone else is thinking. Does she ever talk about anything else? Here's what's really happening. Complaining is emotional outsourcing. You're taking the weight of your emotions and dumping it into the laps of others, hoping they'll carry what you refuse to process yourself. It's not connection. It's transfer. And people instinctively pull away from it. Because deep down they know this. If they stay close long enough, your unresolved chaos will soon become theirs. From a Stoic view, every complaint is an announcement that life owns you. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you complain in public, you're declaring the opposite. The world dictates my peace. You're telling everyone that your inner state is at the mercy of circumstances. And even if your grievances are valid, your loss of control makes them meaningless. I once met another person at that same gathering who was quietly carrying far heavier burdens, health issues, financial strain, and the collapse of a long relationship. But you'd never have guessed. They asked questions, listened deeply, laughed easily. Weeks later, I learned what they'd been enduring and felt an instant surge of respect. Because composure under pressure isn't silence, it's mastery. They weren't pretending life was easy. They were proving that difficulty didn't have to dictate their spirit. That's the Stoic difference. A complainer sees suffering as something to broadcast. A Stoic sees it as a private classroom. Each obstacle, each irritation, each unfair moment is a test of sovereignty over self. The minute you externalize it for sympathy, you've failed the exam. Complaining doesn't invite solutions, it repels them. People stop offering help because they sense you don't want to solve. You want to be seen as the one suffering. And in that moment, you've traded dignity for attention. Seneca wrote, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength. When you speak endlessly of your pain, you do the opposite. You multiply its power." If this truth already hit you, pause, breathe, and keep listening. That's the Stoic training ground. The next time you feel the urge to vent in public, catch yourself. Translate the impulse. Instead of, "I'm overwhelmed," try, "I'm refining how I handle my workload." One exposes helplessness, the other signals growth. Instead of saying, "I'm tired of everyone's nonsense," say nothing at all. Let your composure communicate your endurance. Public complaining is never about the world, it's about the self. It tells people that your emotions have no gatekeeper, that you'll open the door to frustration, shame, anger, and invite anyone nearby to watch. The Stoic knows that peace isn't found in silence, it's built through discipline. And when you stop complaining, something profound happens. You begin to hear the difference between what's painful and what's within your control. You learn that not every discomfort deserves an audience. You learn that dignity is quiet, and self-respect often speaks in restraint. Linda didn't lose friends because her life was hard. She lost them because she made her hardship their responsibility. The other person, calm, composed, quietly enduring, gained respect not for hiding pain, but for mastering its expression. That's the subtle art of strength, suffering without spectacle. So when the temptation comes, when the coffee is cold, the line is long, the day is heavy, remember this. Every complaint is a confession. It tells the world who commands your emotions. Let your silence say what your words cannot. I am still in control. 2. Never react emotionally to provocation. Have you ever watched someone lose control and felt their respect evaporate in seconds? It's a strange thing to witness. You can almost hear the shift in the room, the way air thickens, voices quiet, eyes dart away. It's not just the words they say. It's the raw exposure of emotion, the visible unraveling of composure that changes everything. I remember a meeting that began like any other. A long conference table, screens glowing, the usual shuffle of papers and muted phones. The discussion started calm, professional, until one comment turned the air electric. It wasn't even a sharp insult, just a lightly veiled jab about someone's work. Everyone knew it was meant to provoke, but most stayed silent, glancing toward the target, waiting to see what would happen, and it happened fast. The man's face tightened, his jaw locked, voice rose a notch too high. Within seconds, he was defending himself, listing details, correcting tone, explaining intent. But the more he spoke, the less anyone heard. His words blurred into the sound of control slipping away. You could see it on faces around the table. Respect draining, replaced by quiet discomfort. When he finally stopped, there was a hollow pause. Then the person who'd provoked him leaned back, calm, almost amused. They had what they wanted, proof that he could be rattled. In that moment, everyone learned where his buttons were and how easily they could be pushed. That's the hidden danger of emotional reaction. It gives your power away to whoever provoked it. You might think you're defending yourself, but what you're really doing is showing them the map to your weaknesses. What makes this even more destructive is how it happens inside the brain. When you're provoked, your amygdala, the primal part of your brain responsible for emotional responses, hijacks the rest of your system. It floods your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you for battle, not dialogue. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part that controls reasoning and judgment, temporarily goes offline. In that brief moment, biology replaces philosophy. Instinct replaces discipline. And here's where the Stoic mind separates from the ordinary mind. The Stoic has trained for this moment. They feel the surge, heart quickening, heat rising. But they know it for what it is, a test, not a threat. They pause, breathe, let the chemicals pass before the words escape. That pause is power in its purest form. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The Stoic doesn't deny emotion. They master its timing. They refuse to let anger be the first response, because they know it's almost always the wrong one. In that same meeting, there was another person, quiet through the chaos, steady as a stone. When they were challenged, even more directly, their eyes lifted slowly. No tension, no rush. Just a calm voice saying, "That's an interesting perspective. What makes you see it that way?" The effect was instant. The challenger hesitated, momentum lost. The energy of confrontation collapsed into reflection, and everyone else in the room felt it. The gravity of composure. Respect shifted like the tide. This is what true control looks like. Not the absence of emotion, but the refusal to serve it. It's an art that begins with awareness. When you sense provocation, don't rush to respond. Observe your body, the pulse quickening, the tightening in your chest. Recognize it as the amygdala's flare, not your true self. The moment you name it, you begin to regain command. Dopamine rewards reaction. It makes the instant defense, the heated retort, feel satisfying for a second. But then comes the crash, the cortisol hangover, the regret, the uneasy silence that follows when you realize you've performed weakness instead of strength. Self-control, on the other hand, earns a slower reward. Respect. The kind that stays. There's a reason military leaders, philosophers, and monks across centuries echo the same lesson. Restraint is the ultimate display of strength. Anyone can shout, few can stay silent. The calm person in chaos isn't emotionless. They're trained. Each moment of provocation is another repetition in the gym of the mind. If you've ever mastered silence instead of reaction, you're already walking the true Stoic way. Remember, anger is a trick. It makes you feel powerful in the moment you're giving power away. It promises victory, but delivers regret. Every emotional reaction is a small surrender of your sovereignty. You become what the other person wants you to be: defensive, exposed, predictable. The Stoic, by contrast, becomes unpredictable. When insulted, they smile. When challenged, they inquire. When provoked, they remain still. Because stillness unsettles those who feed on reaction. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Let silence do the talking. Watch how it unnerves them. Watch how their confidence falters when you don't take the bait. That's not weakness. It's warfare mastered through calmness. You don't win arguments by raising your voice. You win by keeping your peace. Because nothing is more intimidating than a person who cannot be provoked. They carry a different kind of authority, the kind born not from dominance but from discipline. And once people see that, they never forget it. 3. Never brag about your achievements. There's a difference between performing success and embodying it. One is loud, restless, always looking for mirrors to reflect its glow. The other moves quietly, measured, unbothered, content to let time reveal what words never need to. I saw both versions standing side by side at a networking event last year. The room was filled with the hum of ambition, glasses clinking, practiced smiles, business cards exchanged with surgical precision. Every conversation seemed to begin the same way. What do you do? Where are you from? Who do you know? It was less about connecting, more about performing relevance. At the center of it all was a man whose confidence was as loud as his voice. Every sentence he spoke carried a hidden drumbeat. Notice me. Within minutes, he had listed his company's revenue, his awards, his speaking engagements, the influential people who just happened to call him a friend. He laughed too hard, gestured too much, and when others spoke, his eyes wandered past them, already searching for the next audience. To the untrained eye, he looked impressive, but watch a little longer, and the performance began to crack. His words had the brittle sound of someone who needs affirmation like oxygen. He wasn't sharing success. He was begging for proof that it mattered. Every detail he dropped was bait for validation, and you could see people subtly pulling back, not out of envy, but exhaustion, because nothing drains energy faster than someone trying to prove their worth. Then there was another man in the same room, calm, reserved, speaking less but saying more. When asked about his work, he offered a short, factual answer and immediately turned the spotlight outward. What got you into your field? What are you building next? There was no performance in his tone, only genuine curiosity. He listened fully, as if each person's story mattered more than his own resume. Hours later, after the crowd thinned, I overheard someone mention his name and decided to look him up. What I found was astonishing. His achievements dwarfed those of the self-proclaimed success story from earlier. Major projects, quiet philanthropy, a track record of leadership that spoke louder than any introduction could. Yet he hadn't mentioned a single detail that night. He didn't need to. His silence had already built curiosity, and curiosity is the seed of respect. That's the difference between performing success and embodying it. The performer seeks witnesses. The embodiment requires none. The performer wants to be seen as great. The embodiment simply is. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." The one who brags, who constantly reminds others of his worth, is announcing spiritual poverty. He's saying, "What I have is not enough until you confirm it." But true confidence has no audience. It breathes quietly in solitude, content to exist without applause. Bragging is noise, mastery is silence, and silence in time attracts what noise repels: respect, trust, and the quiet curiosity that draws people toward you instead of away. Here's the paradox. People who need recognition rarely earn it. People who deserve it rarely seek it. Because validation shouted from your own mouth carries no weight. The moment you announce your greatness, it shrinks. Real value is discovered, not declared. So let curiosity build your reputation silently. Let others uncover your work piece by piece, with the pleasure of discovery. Let their surprise speak louder than your self-promotion ever could. The Stoic doesn't say, "Look at me." He simply becomes someone worth looking at. And when others finally notice, when they ask how you did it, you won't need to brag. You'll just smile. Because true success doesn't need narration. It leaves evidence. The man who boasts may gain attention for a moment, but the man who embodies his craft earns quiet reverence for a lifetime. One performs strength, the other becomes it. And in the end, the world always remembers the second man. 4. Never gossip or speak poorly of others. The fastest way to lose trust is not through lies, but through gossip. Lies can be forgiven because they're often born of fear. Gossip, however, is cruelty disguised as connection. It masquerades as interest, as concern, even as honesty. But what it really is weakness trying to feel powerful. I remember a woman named Sarah. To everyone who met her, she seemed warm, lively, always in the know. At first, her presence at social gatherings felt like a spark. She knew everything about everyone: who was changing jobs, whose marriage was struggling, who wasn't getting along with their boss. Her voice carried a constant hum of stories that made people lean in at first, eager to hear the latest update. But over time, something changed in the room whenever she spoke. You could sense the small tightening of shoulders, the averted eyes, the polite nods masking unease. People began to realize the obvious. If she talked about everyone else when they weren't around, what would she say when they weren't? That realization spread quietly, like smoke from a candle that's just been blown out. Conversations grew shorter. Invitations stopped, including her. Even her laughter began to sound hollow, too loud, too rehearsed. The very thing she thought made her interesting had made her untouchable. Meanwhile, there was another person in that same circle, a quiet observer. When gossip began to swirl, they would simply smile and say, "Maybe we should ask them directly." Or they'd remain silent, not out of judgment, but out of wisdom. That silence, repeated over time, built a strange kind of gravity. People began to trust them with things they'd never share with Sarah. Secrets, fears, mistakes, all entrusted to the one who never repeated a word. That's how trust works. It doesn't shout. It accumulates in the quiet presence of those who guard what others carelessly give away. Gossip feels harmless because it rewards us socially. Each whispered detail triggers a small rush of dopamine, the brain's pleasure signal for belonging. We feel included, in the loop. But the cost of that high is integrity. Each story told about someone else is a silent message to everyone listening. My loyalty is for sale. From a Stoic perspective, gossip is not a moral failure so much as a failure of discipline. When you speak ill of others, you enslave your tongue to weakness. You reveal that your peace depends on comparison, that tearing others down makes you feel taller. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." The Stoic lives this truth by refusing to mirror the pettiness of others. They rise through silence. Words once spoken can't be recalled. You might forget what you said in passing, but the person who heard it never will. Gossip erodes the invisible fabric of respect that holds relationships together. And once that fabric tears, it doesn't mend, it frays. If you're seeing pieces of yourself in these stories, don't click away. This awareness is your first act of self-mastery. Because the temptation to gossip isn't about cruelty, it's about fear. Fear of being left out, of not being interesting enough, of fading into the background if you're not the one holding the latest secret. But the irony is cruel. The more you talk about others, the less memorable you become. The quiet observer, the one who listens but never spreads. People remember them, not because they speak, but because they don't. Their restraint becomes their reputation. Their silence earns them invitations that gossipers never receive, trust that can't be faked, and respect that endures. So the next time someone leans in with that conspiratorial whisper, pause. You're standing at a crossroads. Down one path lies momentary pleasure, the sweet poison of belonging. Down the other, the long road of integrity. The first gives you attention. The second gives you peace. Choose the silence that protects your name rather than the words that poison it. Because when you speak poorly of others, you're not describing them. You're defining yourself. The Stoic knows this deeply. They understand that gossip doesn't reveal information. It reveals the speaker's insecurity. And when you learn to hold your tongue, you do more than guard someone else's reputation. You guard your own. In the end, Sarah didn't lose her circle because of malice. She lost it because she treated trust like currency, spent freely, valued lightly. The quiet observer, on the other hand, built wealth in silence. And silence over time always becomes its own form of power. So speak less. Listen more. Let your conversations lift rather than corrode. And when you feel the pull to share someone else's story, remember, the strong build their name on truth, the wise on restraint. 5. Never seek validation or approval publicly. 2 presenters. Same stage, same audience, same opportunity to be remembered. Yet by the end of the event, only one name lingers in people's minds, and it had nothing to do with talent. The first speaker delivers their presentation well. The content is solid, the pacing fine. But as the last slide fades, something changes. Their eyes begin to scan the crowd, desperate to measure reactions. "Was that clear?" they ask, voice soft but anxious. "Did that make sense? I hope I didn't go on too long." They laugh nervously, searching for approval in the faces before them. A few polite nods, a scattered clap, and then silence. The energy dissolves. Then comes the second presenter. They finish their talk, smile briefly, and simply say, "Thank you." No searching glances, no need for reassurance. They walk off the stage with quiet confidence, as if their worth wasn't up for debate. The applause is louder, not because their content was better, but because they didn't ask for it. The audience gave it freely, not out of obligation, but respect. That's the difference between the person who performs for approval and the one who performs from conviction. One begs for validation, the other commands it through self-trust. Validation is a silent addiction. It begins innocently, wanting reassurance that you did well, that your efforts matter, that you're seen. But soon, it becomes dependence. You start adjusting everything, your tone, your choices, even your truth, to get that next hit of approval. And every time you ask, "Was that good enough?" you tell the world you don't believe it was. The problem isn't just that people notice, it's that they begin to believe you. When you seek constant validation, you train others to question your competence. You're teaching them that your confidence needs to be co-signed, and once they sense that weakness, respect quietly withdraws. I've seen it in boardrooms, in friendships, even in relationships. The one who constantly needs reassurance exhausts the people around them. Their energy becomes heavy, their presence demanding. What should be collaboration turns into emotional babysitting. People start to withhold praise on purpose, not out of cruelty but instinct. Because deep down, they know, approval that's begged for loses its power. Epictetus warned, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." The Stoic doesn't measure progress by applause, but by endurance. They understand that mastery often looks unimpressive to those who don't yet see the full picture. They're willing to let others misunderstand, to let silence fill the room after they speak, trusting that truth doesn't need instant validation. Picture that moment on stage again, the desperate glance into the crowd, the searching eyes flicking from face to face, hunting for permission to feel proud. It's a universal image, because we've all been there. That hollow ache when silence follows your effort. But the Stoic learns to love that silence, because it's pure. It's the space where your own judgment can finally be heard without the noise of others. Validation is borrowed confidence. Self-trust is earned confidence. The first disappears when applause fades. The second grows stronger in solitude. In a world where everyone is constantly performing for likes, claps, and approval, restraint becomes rebellion. To stand firm in your own evaluation, to say, "That was enough," and mean it, is an act of quiet power. Those who need applause can never command respect, because dependence and dignity cannot coexist. Every time you seek permission to be proud, you hand your strength to someone else. The Stoic path demands something rarer: to do the work, deliver it, and let it stand, without flinching at the silence that follows. Some will notice, some won't. Neither outcome changes the truth of what you did. And here's the paradox: when you stop chasing validation, real respect begins to find you. Because people trust those who trust themselves. They sense when your calm isn't performance, it's possession. So whatever stage you're on, whether literal or in daily life, finish your work, breathe, and walk away without checking the crowd. The approval you didn't ask for is the only kind that matters. 6. Never reveal weaknesses or vulnerabilities publicly. At a crowded dinner party a few years ago, I watched someone unravel their privacy one confession at a time. They had barely finished their first drink before they began talking, deeply, almost compulsively, about money troubles, relationship struggles, fear of failure, health anxieties. Every word spilled like a wound still bleeding. At first, people responded kindly, offering sympathetic nods, murmured reassurance, gentle jokes to lighten the heaviness. But as the evening went on, something subtle began to shift. The energy in the room cooled, eyes flickered. The warmth of compassion turned into quiet calculation. Because whether we admit it or not, human beings instinctively categorize what they hear. Every vulnerability shared becomes data, information that shapes how people see you. And information in the wrong hands is leverage. 6 months later, that same person was up for a major opportunity at work, something they were more than qualified for. But behind closed doors, one of the decision makers said, "I'm not sure they can handle pressure right now. You know how they are." The comment wasn't malicious, it was efficient. Their private confessions had been repurposed into professional doubt. They never even knew why the offer never came. That's the danger of public vulnerability. It feels like connection, but it often becomes ammunition. Not everyone who listens wishes you well. Some are neutral, some are curious, and a few are quietly gathering your weak points for later use. From the Stoic perspective, this isn't paranoia, it's realism. Seneca warned, "Guard what matters." He understood that privacy is not secrecy, it's strategy. To share everything with everyone is to confuse openness with wisdom. Stoicism teaches that your struggles are sacred, meant to refine you, not to become public entertainment or currency for sympathy. In a culture that glorifies authenticity, people mistake exposure for honesty. But raw vulnerability in public spaces isn't bravery, it's carelessness. Because when you reveal too much, you lose control over the narrative of your own life. You give others the power to define you by your pain, not your resilience. I've seen this play out countless times. Someone posts about their heartbreak or depression online, and for a moment, they're surrounded by compassion. But scroll a few weeks later, and that compassion fades. The story becomes gossip, the sympathy becomes judgment. The same words that once earned attention now label them. That's how society works. It consumes pain quickly, then moves on. But the memory of your disclosure stays with people long after their empathy ends. And when that happens, they stop seeing your strength. They only see your scars. Stoicism offers a different path. Practice strategic privacy. It doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means choosing where and with whom to share it. Your therapist, your closest friend, your partner, these are safe spaces for truth. But public forums, casual acquaintances, or professional environments are not temples of trust. They are marketplaces. And in a marketplace, everything you give away becomes something that can be traded. Silence, on the other hand, carries power. The quiet person in the room, the one who doesn't broadcast their struggles, commands a kind of respect that talkers never do. Their restraint implies depth, control, mystery. People project strength onto what they don't fully understand. That's the paradox of privacy. The less people know, the more they assume you're capable of anything. But the more you reveal, the easier it becomes to define and confine you. So when you're tempted to overshare, pause. Ask yourself, What am I really seeking right now? Support or validation? If it's the second, step back. Validation fades, but reputation remains. Don't spend what's permanent to buy what's temporary. Your vulnerability is valuable, too valuable to hand out freely. Keep it where it can be protected, not exploited. Because once you give people the blueprint to your fears, you can't be surprised when they build cages from it. Guard what matters. Keep your private battles sacred, fought behind closed doors, where wisdom can grow without interference. The world doesn't need to see your every wound to know you're strong. In fact, the less they see, the more they'll believe it. 7. Never lose control of your temper. It happened in less than 2 minutes, but it changed everything. The room was tense, the kind of tension that hums beneath polite conversation. 12 people sat around a long conference table, the air thick with stale coffee and unspoken frustration. The meeting had already run long, and the project deadline loomed like a storm cloud. Voices were controlled, measured, until one comment cracked the surface. A team member made a suggestion, phrased awkwardly but harmless. Yet for one person it hit the wrong nerve. Their eyes narrowed, shoulders stiffened. Then came the spark. One sharp inhale, one clipped reply, and suddenly the room tilted. The voice rose, sharp and shaking. Accusations spilled out. Who didn't do their part? Who caused the delay? Who always undermined their ideas? Hands gestured wildly. Words overlapped emotion, drowning reason. It wasn't rage born of cruelty. It was frustration finally breaking its cage. But to everyone watching, it didn't matter. Because the content of their words disappeared beneath the spectacle of their loss of control. You could see the shift happening in real time. People stopped listening to the message and started observing the meltdown. Eyes darted to one another, some surprised, some uncomfortable, others quietly judgmental. Someone looked down at their notes, pretending to read, trying to escape the moment without moving. In the space of 90 seconds, years of credibility drained from the room like air from a punctured tire. And when the silence finally came, it wasn't relief. It was recalibration. Everyone had just witnessed something they couldn't unsee. That's what anger does. It rewrites perception instantly. You may calm down minutes later, apologize, even make sense again. But no one remembers your reasons. They remember your reaction. They remember the red face, the raised voice, the moment professionalism gave way to emotion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The consequences of anger outlast its cause." He understood what modern psychology has confirmed. Anger doesn't just burn others, it burns credibility, slowly and permanently. The neuropsychology of anger is simple but brutal. When you lose your temper, your amygdala hijacks your brain's command center. Logic shuts down. Cortisol floods your system, narrowing your attention and distorting judgment. You feel powerful in that moment, but it's a false high, the adrenaline illusion. What you think is dominance is actually chaos disguised as energy. Anger feels like control from the inside and looks like weakness from the outside. That's why it destroys leadership. People can forgive mistakes, even incompetence, but they rarely forgive volatility, because volatility makes you unpredictable, and unpredictability kills trust. After that meeting, the person who lost control didn't lose their job, but they lost something far more important: quiet confidence from their peers. Suddenly, they were excluded from key discussions. Leadership stopped considering them for higher roles. When asked privately why, the answer was always soft, diplomatic. "We need someone who stays composed under pressure." No one ever mentioned the outburst directly, but everyone remembered it. This is how reputation erodes, not through one dramatic failure, but through the lingering memory of instability. You can be brilliant, capable, and disciplined 99% of the time, but the one time you explode, that becomes your definition. Anger is not power, it's exposure. It shows the world where you're weak, what controls you, what you can't master. The Stoic doesn't suppress anger out of politeness. They master it out of wisdom. They understand that every second of composure under provocation strengthens the foundation of their reputation, while every second of rage cracks it. When you feel anger rising, that's your test. The moment your pulse races, your voice tightens, your vision narrows, step back, walk away, breathe. Don't fight for the last word, Fight for your last shred of control, because when you lose that, nothing you say afterward will matter. The Stoic remembers, the fire of anger always burns longer than the spark that lit it, and the more you feed it, the smaller you become inside it. So guard your calm as fiercely as others guard their pride. It is your true display of strength, the quiet authority that cannot be provoked, bought, or shaken. Once they see you can't lead yourself, they'll never let you lead others. 8. Never be rude to service workers. It was a dinner meant to impress. A high-end restaurant downtown, low lighting, white linen, conversation polished to sound important. Deals were being hinted at between courses, laughter rehearsed for timing. Everything about the scene spoke of success. But as the waiter approached our table carrying a tray with careful precision, the entire illusion began to crumble. The man sitting across from me, a potential business partner, charming up until that moment, didn't even look up. He snapped his fingers, interrupted mid-sentence to correct a minor mistake in his order. "I said no onions," he barked, his tone flat but sharp, as if speaking to a malfunctioning machine. The waiter, barely 20, froze for half a second, then nodded, apologetic, professional. I watched as he walked away, and I noticed what the other man didn't. The slight tightening in the waiter's jaw, the subtle glances from nearby tables, the silent discomfort that spread like ripples through water. The mask had slipped. In the quiet elegance of that room, where everyone played their parts so carefully, one moment of rudeness revealed the truth beneath the performance. It wasn't just unkindness, it was hierarchy. A belief, subtle but poisonous, that respect should flow upward, never downward. The man across from me went on speaking about leadership, about building culture, about mutual respect in the workplace, completely unaware that his credibility had just died between sentences. Because the way you treat people who can do nothing for you tells the world everything it needs to know about who you really are. The rest of the meal passed in polite conversation, but something had shifted in me. I watched him interact with the staff again. No eye contact, no thank you, the same mechanical dismissiveness every time. The staff in turn grew quieter around him, more distant. Their movements became minimal, their words reduced to function. Respect, even silent respect, had withdrawn. Kindness to the powerful is strategy. Kindness to the powerless is character. And true Stoicism recognizes this as the highest test of virtue. Marcus Aurelius himself dined with soldiers, listened to servants, and thanked those below him by station, because he understood that nobility isn't a title, it's behavior. The Stoic knows every human being deserves dignity, not for what they can give you, but for what they already are. When you raise your voice to a waiter, when you dismiss a cleaner, when you ignore the cashier, what you're really announcing is that your decency is conditional, that your respect has a price tag attached to status, and that makes you poor, no matter how much money you have. Every environment tests this quietly. In restaurants, airports, stores, people notice how you treat the invisible. The assistant, the driver, the receptionist, they all register who you are when you think no one important is watching. But here's the truth. Someone always is. Character leaks through the smallest cracks in behavior. The Stoic practice of kindness isn't sentimentality, it's discipline. It's understanding that self-control and respect are not situational, but universal. To bow your ego before those with less power is to demonstrate mastery of self. Because arrogance is easy, grace under power is rare. When the waiter returned later that evening, he placed the corrected dish in front of my companion. No complaint, no resentment in his tone, just the professionalism that dignity demands. But I noticed something deeper in that moment. Everyone around us was watching, not the waiter but the man who had failed the test. The judgment was silent but absolute. I made my decision before dessert arrived. The business partnership was over. Because if someone treats those beneath them without respect, they will eventually treat you the same the moment they no longer need you. Character is revealed in how you treat the invisible. And the quiet truth is this: every act of small kindness strengthens the muscle of self-command, while every act of cruelty weakens it. So the next time you're served, handed change, or greeted by someone in uniform, meet their eyes. Thank them sincerely. It costs you nothing but gives you everything that matters. Because kindness to the powerless defines true nobility, and the man who forgets that truth may gain the world, but he loses his soul. 9. Never broadcast your plans before you achieve them. There's a quiet satisfaction in keeping your plans to yourself. The kind of satisfaction that doesn't need likes, approval, or acknowledgement, because it's built on momentum, not noise. But most people never experience it. They trade the long reward of real achievement for the short thrill of announcing what they intend to do. I once knew two men who began the same journey, both ambitious, both talented. The first, let's call him the poster. The second, the builder. The poster loved beginnings. Every new goal was a headline. Starting my own business, he'd write on social media, followed by motivational quotes and promises of greatness. Big things coming soon. Each announcement gathered likes, comments, and encouragement. And with every digital cheer, you could almost see the dopamine surge, the chemical applause that tricks the brain into believing something meaningful just happened. It hadn't. You see, the brain doesn't distinguish between talking about an accomplishment and achieving it. The same reward centers light up. The praise, the excitement, the validation, they deliver the same hit of dopamine as success itself. And that's where the danger lies, because once the brain gets its reward, motivation quietly dies. The work feels less urgent when the ego's already been fed. The builder was different. He didn't post, didn't announce. When asked what he was working on, he smiled slightly and said, "Just improving a few things." Then he'd go quiet. No validation, no performance, just work. Months passed. No updates, no teasers, no grind mode hashtags. Just consistent, invisible progress. A year later, while the poster had long since abandoned his latest big project, the builder quietly unveiled something real. A functioning company, a finished product. Proof. There was no hype, only results. And the reaction from others was completely different. Shock, admiration, respect. Because nothing commands attention more than success that wasn't advertised. That's the paradox. The more you talk about your plans, the less likely you are to finish them. Every premature announcement dilutes your focus. You start building reputation instead of reality. You start performing ambition instead of embodying it. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." In other words, be the thing, don't talk about it. Modern psychology agrees. Each time you speak your goals aloud for approval, you create a psychological closure. Your mind interprets the verbal declaration as partial completion. That's why the early excitement fades and your drive evaporates. The applause replaces the effort. Talk less. Do more. Let time speak for you. There's a quiet strength in working in the shadows, away from noise and judgment. It builds a kind of confidence that can't be borrowed or faked. While others are busy announcing intentions, you're accumulating results. When they finally see what you've built, it's not performance, it's proof. The builder understood this. He didn't crave recognition, he cultivated readiness. When his time came, he didn't need to convince anyone. His work did the talking. That's what mastery looks like. The humility to stay silent until your actions echo louder than your words ever could. Every great creator, thinker, or leader shares this secret. They value solitude over spectacle, progress over performance. Because real power grows in silence, not in applause. The next time you feel the urge to announce your next move, resist it. Let the silence build tension. Let people wonder what you're up to. There's power in mystery. There's focus in privacy. Every day you keep your work unspoken, you protect its energy from distraction and ego. And when it's ready, when it's real, let it reveal itself without fanfare. The results will arrive carrying their own evidence. So guard your goals the way a warrior guards strategy. Tight, private, sacred. The world doesn't need to know what you're building until it's built. Because those who announce loudly rarely finish strongly, and those who finish strongly rarely needed to announce at all. Public behavior is a mirror that never lies. Every glance, every gesture, every silence reveals something about who you are and who governs you. You can't hide it. Not in a meeting, not in a cafe, not in the smallest interaction with a stranger. The world reflects what you practice, not what you preach. You've seen it. The person who complains in public, broadcasting their burdens like currency. They don't realize that every complaint tells the world, life owns me. You've seen the one who reacts emotionally to provocation, who loses composure in seconds. The moment they explode, their power shifts to the one who triggered them. You've seen the boaster, the one who performs success instead of embodying it, mistaking noise for respect. You've seen the gossiper too, the one who trades trust for belonging, unaware that every secret shared is another bridge burned. And the one who seeks validation publicly, eyes scanning for approval, teaching everyone around them that their confidence needs permission to exist. Then there are the oversharers, the ones who confuse vulnerability with honesty, turning private pain into public performance. They don't see how information, once given away, becomes leverage in the wrong hands. You've seen the angry ones, the outbursts, the red faces, the sudden shattering of composure that rewrites years of credibility in seconds. And the rude ones, those who believe kindness should only flow upward, who treat waiters, cleaners, or cashiers like props instead of people. Finally, you've seen the dreamers who talk endlessly about what they'll do, but never do it. They confuse attention for progress, performing ambition instead of building it. 9 habits. 9 ways we betray ourselves in public, and all of them share one root: the loss of self-control. The Stoics understood that discipline is not about suppression, it's about mastery. To rule your impulses, your emotions, your tongue, that is freedom. Because until you control yourself, you'll always be controlled by the world. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That single truth defines every moment of strength. The man who cannot command himself cannot be trusted with anything greater: love, respect, leadership, or influence. Public behavior isn't about impressing others, it's about alignment, what you say you value, and what your actions prove. It's easy to speak of wisdom, harder to live it in the small, invisible moments, when you're insulted, ignored, inconvenienced, or tempted to prove yourself. Those are the moments when character either fractures or forges. So look in that mirror. Watch your reflection not with judgment, but with awareness. Notice the reflexes that betray you, the words that escape too easily, the emotions that rise before reason. Then choose one behavior, just one, that you recognized in yourself. Eliminate it this week. And watch how the world shifts in response. Watch how people start to mirror the new steadiness you carry. Because the external world always bends to the weight of inner control. That is the art of restraint. The quiet strength that turns chaos into clarity, noise into stillness, weakness into power. And remember this, you don't need to perform discipline for others. You practice it for yourself, so that peace becomes your default, not your disguise. If this message resonates, you belong in this brotherhood. Subscribe to True Stoic Way, where we train not to perform strength but to become it. Here we don't chase power. We build it, silently, consistently, until the world recognizes it without us saying a word.